so this is talking about different notations for talking about an interval. So anytime we're talking about a range of values, like an infinite number of values that start somewhere and end somewhere else, there's different ways we can show this. They all mean the same thing. It's just different types of ways to present that. So this one's probably the one that we've used the most this year. This is called interval notation. And this is the whole idea of like, this is where we start and this is where we finish. But there's other ways that we can show this as well. We can do it with a number line. We can also use inequality notation. This has set notation. Sometimes you see it written like that. What we're doing here is not exactly set notation as it's typically written, but same idea. You don't care. Okay, let's move on. So the first one, actually let's start with number 2, just because this is the one we're used to. This is saying we're starting at negative infinity and we're going all the way up to 1 and stopping, right? So if I'm trying to visualize what this means, it means that I've got on one end, I'm at 1, and then I'm going to go forever in the negative direction. So if we were going to talk about what that looks on a number line, we would say that we're starting at 1. So we'll just make a little 1 right there. And then it's going to be a little arrow that's going to go to the left, because on a number line, our small numbers go that way, right? So we got like 0s and negative 1, and then this way would be like 2 and 3. Like if that was our little number line, we're starting at 1 and we're going to negative infinity. Now the only other thing that's involved with these is you have to figure out if those end points, like these, the very, very end, if that's included. Like could it be equal to exactly 1 or not? So on interval notation, that's why we use parentheses versus brackets. A parenthesis means that it is not, let's say up here, like parenthesis equals not included. Whereas brackets mean that it is included. If you want to add that to the top of yours as well, that could be helpful. Included means it could be equal to that thing. So negative infinity to 1, negative infinity to 1, and an open circle would be the same as a parenthesis. That means it's not included. So that would be the same thing. As far as like the inequality notation, we're always going to use x for this. If you were doing like range on a graph, we would do the same thing, but we would be using a y value going up and down. But we're just going to use x for this worksheet. So we'll say x, my x value, in this case the starting point is at 1 and it's going everything smaller. So we want to be smaller than, x is less than 1, and I am not going to put my little equals to sign because it's not included. The 1 is not equal. So open circle, parenthesis, no line underneath it. These all mean the same thing. If you look at number 1, x is greater than or equal to 2. That means that we are actually, my smallest value is going to be at 2. It doesn't really matter what order you do these in. I'm going to jump over to the number line real quick. So that means we're going to start at 2. Put a little circle here. And notice that we have the equal to part this time, so I'm going to close that in. Same thing. That means it could be equal to 2. It could be equal to 2. And this time it's like says x is bigger than 2. So we're going to point to all the things bigger than 2. So that would be going that direction to the right. And so interval notation wise, if we're going to be starting at 2, that would be the smallest value that we could have. And then the largest value would be to infinity. So I'm going to put a 2 and I'm going to go to positive infinity. We always do the smallest number on this side and the larger number on that side. And in this case, since it's equal to, I'm going to use a bracket. We always use parentheses for infinity because you can never actually get there. So it has a line underneath it. It's the same thing as a bracket, same thing as a closed circle. I think you know all of these individually. I just wanted to make sure that we were aware that they all mean the same thing. They're kind of interchangeable. I'm going to skip number 3. I'm going to slide down here to number 4. This is where we have x is in between 12 and 8. So I know a couple of you have told me that you weren't really sure what this means. That's a bell. Well, this means that like our x values, the things we're talking about, they start somewhere and they stop somewhere. They don't go to infinity on either direction. So pretty easy here. We're just going to say if 8 is the smallest value, then 8 would be my smallest value. And if 12 is my biggest value, then 12 is my biggest value. Because the 8 has an equal to piece, we're going to put a bracket. And because the 12 does not, we're going to put a parenthesis. See how they translate over pretty easily and pretty nicely. The left-hand side is an 8, the right-hand side is 12, and then the equal to, the not equal to. It's kind of the same thing here. You don't have to be real fancy with your number lines. I don't really care about that. We've got an 8 on this side. We have a 12 on that side. The 8 is a closed bracket with an equal to, so we're going to make that a dark circle, closed in circle. And then because the 12 is not equal, it's parentheses, so we're going to use an open circle. And we're just going to connect them. However you want to do that is fine, because all the values are in between those two things. So that one should be pretty easy, I hope. And then the last one I wanted to show you real quick is these are called unions, or this is where we're talking about an or statement. So anytime you're dealing with this or this, it really means that we got two different things on the same number line. So we're talking about two separate pieces here. X could either be less than 1, it's everything that's less than 1, or x could be greater than or equal to 3, everything bigger than 3. So on the number line, the way this would look, we would just kind of start with our first piece. X is less than 1, so I'm going to put that on my number line, put a 1 right there. It's going to be an open circle, and it's everything x is less than 1. So we're going to go to the left with my open circle. And my second piece is x is greater than or equal to 3. So I'm just going to put a 3 in here. Closed circle because of the equal to part. And it's x is bigger than 3, so I'm going to point to all the bigger numbers. Those would be this way. This would be like a 4, kind of like that. So all the bigger numbers would be that way. And then the way I would do that here, and this is kind of how we do it, you can see the example below. We're just doing two separate pieces. So we're going to start with our first piece, x is less than 1. Just for a helpful guide, that's the same thing as this first piece of our number line. So you'll notice for this piece of the number line, it goes to negative infinity to the left. So this one's going to go all the way to negative infinity. It's everything smaller than 1. And that goes forever. The biggest thing for this one would be 1. That's kind of like the boundary. So we're going to go up to 1 and we're going to stop. Open circle, parenthesis, no equal to symbol. And then we're going to put the second one is x is greater than or equal to 3. So that's this piece. You'll notice on the smallest that this can be is 3. So like the left-hand side was 3. So I'm going to emulate that here and put a little bracket to it. And then the biggest that this can be is, well, forever. So we're just going to go to infinity and beyond. And then you put this little u in between them. It stands for union, and it just means that these two things are connected. It could be either this or this. Either one will work. So that's kind of how those are listed. So I think that you can probably finish the rest of this. If you've got questions, let me know. Voila.